The story begins in the year 2032. We see a spaceship floating in space. Its name is the Hail Mary. Inside this spaceship, a man slowly regains consciousness. This man had no memories at all. He had been in a coma for the past 2 years. Now he has no idea how he ended up here, and none of his old memories are coming back to him. This man's name is Ryland Grace. He wants to understand everything about himself. He also wants to know why he is here. When he starts carefully checking every part of the spaceship, he discovers several dead bodies. After seeing them, he understands clearly that these people were probably part of his mission. But what the mission is, and why they came here, none of that is clear to him yet. Then he makes his way to the control room. There he learns that the AI connected to the ship is named Miri. He tells Miri to take him back to Earth immediately. But Myra responds saying, the ship cannot return to Earth until the mission is complete. From this, he learns that the mission launched from Earth 2 years ago. That means he has been traveling for 2 full years, and he spent all that time deep in a coma. Now slowly his memories begin to return. He remembers he was a science teacher at a middle school. He used to teach molecular biology to his students. Around that time, scientists had detected a faint infrared line stretching all the way from the Sun to Venus. It was named the Petrova line. They also discovered that a microscopic dry organism called astrophage was rapidly growing on the surface of the Sun. Because of this, the Sun's light output was slowly decreasing. Scientists predicted that, within the next 30 years, the Earth would experience extreme cold temperatures. This would trigger what they called the Great Cooling. And the Great Cooling would ultimately destroy all life on Earth. Grace, though, believed that scientists would eventually find a solution. He trusted that they would figure it out. After one of his classes, a woman came to him. Her name was Eva Stratt. She was the head of Project Hail Mary. She already knew a great deal about Grace. A few years earlier, Grace had published a paper. In it, he had tried to prove that life could survive on a planet even without water. At the time, people mocked him for this idea. He was pushed out of the scientific community entirely. Stratt, however, had known of him since that paper. After that failure, Grace had taken a job at a school and started teaching children. Now, Stratt told him she wanted to give him an opportunity. She explained that a new project had been launched. She wanted him to be a part of it. With that, she took him to a laboratory. There, she showed him a demo version of something. She said, "I want you to test this." Grace spent several hours carefully examining it. Afterward, he said, "This is a single-celled organism. No electromagnetic field can pass through it at all. That means no sunlight can pass through it, and nothing else either. This does not look like anything from Earth. It looks like something alien." When Stratt heard his analysis, she was deeply impressed. And Grace understood with complete clarity that this was the very organism dimming the sun. It was slowly reducing the sun's light output. The Petrova line, that strange infrared trail, had also been caused by this same organism. Shortly after Stratt came to meet him again, she told him, "Your theory was completely correct. Life can exist beyond Earth without water." She continued, "The dry organism you just examined is called astrophage. It originated on Venus. 130 scientists had been researching it for years. But your theory was the most accurate of all." Because of this, Stratt brought Grace onto her team. She then took him to their research base. There he was told, "We need to produce enormous quantities of astrophage." Grace asked them, "Why do we need to produce more astrophage?" They told him, "We want to use it as fuel inside our rocket. With this fuel, our spacecraft will be able to travel at incredible speed." After years of research, they had found one key piece of information. Inside our star system, there is a star called Tau Ceti. Even though every other star's light had dimmed due to astrophage, Tau Ceti's light had not dimmed at all. So they decided to send a small team of scientists from Earth to that star. But this was essentially a suicide mission, a one-way trip. Anyone who went would never return to Earth alive. They would simply travel there, conduct research, and then send their findings back to Earth through small robotic spacecraft, which could travel at very high speed. The biggest reason for this plan was the distance involved. It would take 3 full years just to reach Tau Ceti. If they tried to send the data back as a radio transmission, it would take around 26 years to arrive. That was far too long. Earth could be destroyed before the message even arrived. 3 scientists were selected from the entire team for this mission. The story then jumps back to the present. Grace looks around the spaceship and sees that both of his crewmates are dead. He tries hard to remember more, but no matter how much he struggles, nothing more comes back to him. And so, for the next several months, he drifts through space, traveling toward his destination, completely alone. Then one day, the ship's AI Miri suddenly tells him there is another spacecraft approaching ours. He looks out the window and freezes. The other ship is completely different from his. It is large and strangely shaped, unlike anything he has ever seen. A moment later, something is launched from that ship toward his. He is terrified. But after waiting a long time, it does not explode. He realizes it was probably a message. So he goes outside the ship, retrieves the object, and brings it in. After examining it closely and carefully, Grace understands that whoever sent it was sharing their location with him. He learns that the sender came from a planet called 40 Eridani. So Grace sends back his own location using the same object. Shortly after, something comes out of the other ship heading toward his. It latches on tightly. The 2 ships are now joined together. A passage forms between the 2 vessels. Grace was very frightened, not knowing what might come through. But he gathered his courage and walked forward through that passage. On the other side, he came face to face with the being who had sent the message. It was an alien, and this alien looked incredibly strange. It had 5 legs. Its body looked like rock. Compared to Grace, this alien was much smaller. It made strange, unusual sounds that Grace could not understand at all. Grace could not understand the alien's language, and the alien could not understand Grace's. But they both realized very clearly that neither of them was a threat to the other. They were safe with each other. So each of them, aboard their own ship, began building a special device to translate the other's language. Before long, both devices were complete. And finally, they began to communicate. When they talked, they learned that their 2 missions were exactly the same. Both of them had come here to save their own planet from astrophage. Grace gave the alien a name, Rocky, because his entire body looked just like rock. Very quickly, as they talked, the 2 of them became close friends. There was no one else out here. In this vast universe, they were completely alone. That is why their friendship grew so naturally. Rocky told him, "My ship had 23 others just like me, but every single one of them is gone." Grace then told him, "My ship also had 2 others, but both of my crewmates have died as well." Since Grace had built a special translation device, everything he said was instantly converted into Rocky's language. Rocky could understand him perfectly. They agreed that since their missions were the same, they would work together from this point on to complete the mission successfully. A short while later, Rocky wrapped himself in a protective crystal layer and entered Grace's ship. He did this because oxygen is harmful to him. He cannot breathe in an oxygen-rich environment, so he needed that protective suit. It worked like a spacesuit for him. Once inside the ship, Rocky immediately told Grace, "You have made your ship very messy." The 2 of them had already started joking with each other. Rocky then said, "I am the mechanic of my ship. Since our destination is the same place, let's use your ship to go forward together." Grace agreed and gave him permission. Then Rocky told him, "I must return to my planet no matter what. My wife is waiting for me back home. We have been together for 123 years. Grace also shared, "I had a girlfriend once, but she is no longer with me." After traveling together for 11 more days, they finally arrived near Tau Ceti. They went outside and collected samples from the star's surroundings. They wanted to test why astrophage had no effect here. Why had the light of Tau Ceti not dimmed at all? After testing for a long time, Grace found the answer. The samples they had collected contained an enormous number of bacteria. These bacteria were actively fighting the astrophage. That is why astrophage had no effect on this star at all. Grace was overjoyed. Now, with this information, both of them could save their own planets. But first, Grace needed a large amount of this bacteria so he could send it back to Earth through a robotic spacecraft as quickly as possible. He needed Earth to understand that these bacteria could save the planet. Grace then told Rocky, "Even if I save my planet, I can never go back there. My ship doesn't carry enough astrophage fuel to make the return trip. The fuel I had was just enough to get here. I have nothing left to go back. But Rocky told him clearly and firmly, "You have become my closest friend. I will not let anything happen to you. My ship carries a large amount of fuel. I will give that fuel to you. With it, you can return to your planet." Doing this would cost Rocky 6 extra years to get back to his own planet. But Rocky didn't mind at all. He only wanted to save his friend. Hearing this, Grace became deeply emotional. He reached out and embraced Rocky. After that, they finally flew into Tau Ceti's vicinity to collect more samples. The gravity there was extremely strong. They struggled to control the ship under that intense gravitational pull. Grace stepped outside to collect the samples and began loading them one by one into a box. It took a long time. He was also badly hurt as the gravity kept pulling him down. Still, he pushed through the pain, and eventually he succeeded. When he brought the box back inside, he tried to pull the ship away from the star. But the gravitational force was so overwhelming that it put enormous pressure on the engine. The engine exploded. In that blast, Grace was knocked unconscious. Rocky had been watching everything from a distance. He immediately stepped out of his crystal covering. First, he set the ship to autopilot. Then he carried Grace into the hibernation chamber so that Myri, the ship's AI, could treat him and help him recover. The story then shifts back to Earth. We see that Grace, working alongside Strat's team, had completed the rocket engine. They were fully ready to launch. The 3 scientists selected for the mission had all been told to prepare. But then a massive explosion tore through the lab. All 3 scientists were killed instantly. Because of this, Grace was told he had to go in their place. Grace refused outright. But Strat told him very directly, "I am not asking you. This is an order." With that, her guards grabbed him by force. They injected him with a sedative and knocked him unconscious. They sent him off on the mission against his will. That is why, when he woke up 2 years later, he remembered almost nothing. Back in the present, Grace regains consciousness once again. But when he opens his eyes, he sees Rocky lying completely still right in front of him. His heart sinks. He realizes Rocky had sacrificed himself to save him. Rocky wasn't moving, and he had come out of his protective crystal covering. That is why Grace was so devastated. Then he checked the box of samples he had brought back. When he examined them closely, he noticed something remarkable. The moment the sample came into contact with astrophage, it consumed all of the astrophage completely. Then it began reproducing on its own. It was using astrophage as food. By eating the astrophage, it multiplied rapidly and grew in large numbers. That was the entire reason astrophage had no effect on this star. The organism living here was simply eating the astrophage. Grace gave this organism a name, the Predator. He believed this was the key to saving both his planet and Rocky, but he didn't yet know how to deliver the Predator to Rocky's planet. Still, he trusted that if he could get inside Rocky's ship, he would find a way. He brought his ship close to Rocky. That night, while he was sleeping, he suddenly heard movement. He opened his eyes, and there was Rocky still alive. Grace was overwhelmed with joy. He wrapped his arms around Rocky, filled with emotion. He told him, "We've done it. We've succeeded. Now we can save both our planets." Rocky then brought Grace inside his ship. It had been built entirely from a special kind of crystal. Grace was completely amazed by what he saw. Afterward, Rocky transferred some astrophage fuel from his ship into Grace's, so Grace could make the journey home. Then the 2 friends said their goodbyes, and each set off toward their own planet. Months passed. Then one day, alarms started blaring inside Grace's ship. He realized the Predator samples he had brought aboard had evolved. They were now trying to eat the astrophage fuel right through the sealed fuel tanks. After a great deal of effort, Grace managed to solve the problem. But then it hit him. Rocky's ship must be facing the exact same issue. And Rocky, being a mechanic, not a biologist, would never be able to fix it on his own. If that happened, Rocky would never reach his planet. His planet could never be saved. Both Rocky and his world would be lost. Grace didn't know what to do. He didn't have enough fuel to fly to Rocky and fix the problem and still make it back to Earth. He was stuck with an impossible choice. After a long time thinking, he made his decision. He chose to sacrifice himself. On Earth, he had no one truly close to him. But Rocky was a real friend, a true friend. He loaded all his Predator samples and every piece of data he had gathered into a robotic spacecraft. He sent it toward Earth. Then he turned his ship around and headed straight for Rocky. After months of travel, he finally reached him. He boarded Rocky's ship. Rocky lit up with joy the moment he saw Grace. Grace fixed the problem completely. Back on Earth, we see Strat. The sun's light has dimmed dramatically. The cold has become severe. Life on Earth has grown incredibly hard. But now, Strat has received the formula Grace sent. Through the sample he transmitted, they finally understand exactly how to fight the astrophage. They know how to push back against it and how to restore the sun's brightness. They get to work immediately, and eventually they succeed. The sun's light is restored. Earth is saved. On the other side of the universe, we see Grace. Rocky has taken him along to his own planet. There, Grace lives inside an enormous dome, perfectly suited to his environment and atmosphere. And he hasn't aged because he was traveling at the speed of light. While many years passed on Earth, only a few years passed for him. He lives there alongside Rocky, because Rocky has become his dearest friend. And Rocky has repaired Grace's ship and filled it with fuel. So whenever Grace wants, he can return to Earth easily and freely. And on that remarkable note, this is where the entire story ends.